Hello, welcome to MU Reports. My name is Michael Sutterfield. I'm a mass communication student at Methodist University. Today I will be conducting an interview with participants of this year's mock trial. The mock trial, which took place in Fayetteville, November 9th, gave students the opportunity to broaden their knowledge of how court cases take place. The case revolved around the hacking of a phone that was left unsecured. I am here with Carla Weinbrenner. Can you please tell us about what you do here at Methodist?
Hi, yes, I'm an instructor in the Digital Forensics and Cybersecurity program. I teach the digital and mobile forensics side.
Okay, nice. And you were an active part of the mock trial here in Fayetteville.
Yes.
Could you tell us about your experience there?
Yes. My students in mobile forensics, they were the ones that created the evidence that helped the expert witnesses with the language that helped create all the different evidence, and also helped the lawyers with all the different terminology.
Okay. And what role specifically did you play in the trial, if there was any?
I was the one that helped with making sure my students got everything done that needed to get done within the time frame that needed to get done, and I helped liaison between my class and Miss Vonnegut's litigation class.
Okay. Are you satisfied with the outcome of the trial and how everything went?
I am. It was a little difficult to try to get everything done on top of our normal class, what I needed to cover in class. And I know my students were very aggravated with the entire process, but I think it was a great learning experience, and it really helped them appreciate what they do and how and what they can expect in the future.
Can you tell us a little bit about the trial and kind of what took place?
Yes, it was a civil trial where Dabney, look, I always forget the term. She blamed Orange for not protecting her iPhone and for allowing a backdoor into her iPhone through her MySpace account. And so she was suing Orange because she lost, someone stole her identity, and she lost her scholarship, and she wound up dropping out of college because of that. And it actually, 2 weeks before, a week or 2 weeks before her phone was hacked, she also lost her wallet and her PDA, which also contained her driver's license and her credit card.
Wow. As far as prosecution goes, how do you feel about the outcome of the trial?
I think the prosecution had a disadvantage because they lost one of their witnesses and one of their lawyers because the female soccer team went to Texas, so they missed the actual trial, and we found out the day before the trial. But they did the best that they could. I think that all the lawyers in general were paying too close of attention of what had to happen next and not paying a close attention to the actual statements that were being said. So I think there were a lot of missed opportunities for any sort of objections.
Yeah. If the case were more modern times, how do you think that would have affected the outcome?
I think if the courtroom itself was more modern and the judge, the jury, the lawyers, everybody were more aware of technology, then I think that we would have been able to illustrate the different hacks and the different terminology that a lot of people had problems understanding.
And do you think that the mock trial in Fayetteville is beneficial for students?
Yes, for both forensics and the law students, because in forensics, they need to, they're going to spend a lot of time within their career testifying, and so it gives them exposure to that while they're still learning, and it also gives the lawyers a lot of exposure before they actually go to law school.
Mm-hmm. What would you tell future students who plan on attending a mock trial?
I say to be prepared for a lot of time and commitment, and that it's definitely worth the headache.
Yes, ma'am. Well, Ms. Carla, we thank you for your time and answering our questions. We will now be speaking with
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name is Morgan Fairclough, and today I'm here to represent my client, Dabney Hamlin. On December 14, 2006, a 19-year-old girl's phone was hacked. That day forced her to drop out of school, move back in with her parents, and put her entire life on hold. Orange Incorporation, due to their negligence, she lost her sense of security. Because she had to drop out of school, she had to put her whole future on hold. Orange Incorporation put the security of my client's personal information in jeopardy to gain a financial advantage against their competitors. That Christmas bonuses were more important than my client's future. The plaintiff's team will call witnesses to the stand. We will begin with Dabney Hamlin, who will let you know firsthand the stress that she had to go through. We will then call former Orange Inc. employer, Jody Franklin, to the stand, who will testify that the security of the phone did not meet the completion of their testing, that Orange Inc. was negligent. Then we will call a young hacker, Slack Sawyer, who will testify that he was able to hack into Dabney Hamlin's phone, which the defense will try to tell you is unhackable. We will then call expert witnesses, Taylor Brazil and Aaron Johnson, to the stand, who will testify and explain the process that a hacker must take and the information needed to properly hack a device. They will then explain the simplicity of hacking the Me phone. We ask that you listen carefully and place yourself in the shoes of my client and her families, and find Orange Inc. negligent for my client. Thank you.
here with Jonathan Cooper.
Hi.
You were involved with the mock trial in Fayetteville.
I was, yeah.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do here at Methodist?
I'm a cybercrime and digital forensics major. I'm also a part of a fraternity here on campus, and I got to help out with a lot of different projects that the Mobile Forensics Club gets to work on.
Nice. Can you tell us about your experience in the mock trial?
Yeah, our entire class was focusing on creating the evidence for the mock trial and helping prep the lawyers, helping prep the witnesses for the trial, and making sure that everything ran smoothly and made sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I and a couple other students worked on actually making the evidence and going through it and then extracting the evidence and writing reports and things like that.
Do you feel like other people participating in the mock trial were helpful generally with everyone else to keep up with terminology?
Seeing all my classmates together, because we did that for most of our class sessions, was working on the mock trial. It's really kind of a bonding moment for us to all come together and work on this thing. There were some students who we felt didn't really help a whole lot, or who we couldn't see their roles in it except for them asking us questions that we had to continuously answer.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I felt like it was a good way to bridge the gap between the legal department and the forensics department, because it's something we haven't done, at least I haven't done in my experiences working on before.
For sure. And to my understanding, the case was linked with a girl who lost her phone.
Yes.
And her information was hacked through her MySpace account.
Yes.
That seems like kind of an outdated case. If it were more modern, such as what we know today with cyber forensics and all the technology we have today, how do you think that may have affected the outcome of the mock trial?
I think it would have affected the outcome pretty similarly. The biggest thing that the mock trial got, because the defense won, was saying that the hack wasn't actually a hack, it wasn't an exploit. But I think if it had been more modern, people would have understood a lot more of the terminology, because no one uses MySpace anymore, no one uses these kind of devices anymore. So it was a good idea to do for just the idea of the case for someone whose phone was exploited, but it wasn't good exactly in the sense that a lot of people, especially on the jury, may not have been able to relate to it. I feel like if they had been able to release the material more, then it would have been a little more interesting at least, or at least the jury would have felt a little bit more connected to the case.
Yeah. How do you feel the mock trial helps students, prepare?
I think it's really important for people who want to go into both fields, both digital forensics or any forensics, to be fair, and anyone who wants to be a lawyer. It's good to have that kind of practice and to be in a courtroom and to have that experience, to be sitting in front of a real judge and arguing a case, and it feels real. It's really important because some people can break under that kind of pressure. Some people will forget things, and it's important to do that in a controlled environment so that way you learn how you are.
Yeah.
And even though I just worked on the behind the scenes stuff, I worked on just the evidence, it was really, really cool to be able to sit in the courtroom in the back and just watch everything I'd worked on for the past couple months play out. And it was really cool to see my classmates go up there and actually sit on the stand, people who we've been preparing for and role playing with and working so hard for, get on the stand and play these characters and bring them to life in a way that could help these lawyers actually learn what they're supposed to be doing.
Well, thank you, Jonathan, for your time. I
Thank you.
appreciate you answering my questions.
Of course, thank you.
We will now be talking with
You know him for a grip.
Tom.
Yeah.
And he wanted to join a group you were.
Yes. He thought he should.
And what was that group?
It was the Western CWM.
Why didn't you let him join?
I had seen his work and it was not sophisticated.
And why do you think that it wasn't sophisticated?
Tax lawyer didn't. I saw some of his work before, and it was just war driving, ping flooding, changing manners on websites,
And what is a script kiddie?
So, a script kiddie is someone who has to use a script of some sort, some type of instruction to do something. You can YouTube how to hack into someone's Instagram right now, and that is the same thing as a script kiddie. So, I think that's what a hack is. That's what I say he is. So he's not original. He has to use someone else's work to do his own.
Now we're I can't be on TV, fellas. We're now here with Tim Bias. You are a forensics major here at Methodist University. Can you tell us about your experience here?
Like you said, digital forensics and cybersecurity is what I major in. It's been an awesome experience, actually. I mean, I'm prior military. I was actually in the Air Force for about 16 years, and so we dabbled a little bit in computers and things like that. And so, wanted to kind of like a lifelong dream type deal going on, and so that's what brought me here to Methodist.
That's great. So. You took place at the mock trial here in Fayetteville. Can you tell us about your experience?
Sure did. Like it's been said, it was a bit trying. It was, but as far as the experience, I think it was actually a fantastic experience because of the fact that, I mean, where else would you actually be able to get an actual judge, and actually get a live actual jury, and you know what I mean? All those components, all those, it was so multifaceted, and it just kind of fit together. It was actually really cool experience.
What would you say are some difficulties you faced with the trial and your role?
For us, and being a digital forensics major, we have a lot of technical, jargon. We call it geek speak, and so trying to convey that to a person that, or quite a few people that did not know, what malware is, and what antiviruses are, and things like that. Right. I mean, to keep your computer safe and things like that. And so that was kind of like, there was like a language barrier, so to speak. And so that was definitely challenging.
Yeah. As far as prosecution goes, how do you feel about the outcome of the trial?
So the prosecution, they did the best they possibly could with what they had. Again, like I said, that language barrier. So there was a couple of things that weren't necessarily put out there as far as the language and things like that. And so I think it went pretty well.
Yeah. What would you say to future students who plan on attending a mock trial?
Come with your game face on. Yeah, we'll definitely say that. It was, again, it was a good experience, but it was a lot of work, a lot of time. Again, kind of getting over yourself.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're so up here again, you know, in our major that we need to be able to actually be able to explain in layman's terms kind of what's all going on. So,
If the trial were placed, if the case were placed in a more modern setting, how do you think that would have affected the outcome?
Well, definitely. So with it being modernized, I think we would have been able to have, like, you know, if the courtroom actually had like smart boards and things like that, we would probably be able to go ahead and convey the message of, okay, well, this is what eavesdropping is. This is what you know, a hack is. This is, you know what I mean. We would actually be able to kind of work those widgets out, you know, in that way. And so. Yeah.
And do you feel like the judge and other participants of the mock trial were generally helpful to keep everybody on the same page and keep things flowing smoothly?
I do, honestly, and they did the best they possibly could. The judge was awesome. He was actually pretty funny. You know what I mean? Normally you go in there into the judge or into the courtroom, and it's normally gloom and doom. You know, normally you're getting a parking ticket or whatever it is. And so yeah, he kept it light. I believe everybody that actually took a part in that in the mock trial was actually yeah.
That's great.
Awesome. So
well, thank you, Tim, for answering our questions.
All right.
Glad to see you.
How old were
We
you
will
when you
now be
first saw
speaking with another interviewee who is a part of the trial.
Was your knee phone your first smartphone? Yes. Do you have any other Orange products?
I do.
Can you tell me what that is?
I have the knee pad, the knee stack, and the knee piano.
Do they all work with each other?
Yes.
When did you first get your knee phone?
I got it when it first released, so I stayed outside the night before at like 8 o'clock, so like December 12th, I was outside and I waited until December 13th when they released the phone.
So what were some of the, or how much did you pay for your phone?
$599.
What were some of the things that you could do on this phone?
I could take pictures and videos and upload them directly to my social media, like my MySpace, and I could download music, and it was like a little mini computer
How often did you use MySpace on your phone?
every day.
And how did you access it?
It was Safari.
Was Safari already on the phone when you got it?
Yes.
Did you ever create a shortcut to the page?
Yes.
And how did that appear on your phone?
It was like this little title of the MySpace logo on it.
Was it in the Safari app or was it on the phone?
It was on the Safari app.
So after the phone release, did you keep up with the news on it?
Yes.
Did you ever see anything that concerned you about it?
I saw an article about the possibility of the phone being hacked, but I wasn't worried about it because I knew people weren't going to fix it.
Had you had problems with your Orange products in the past?
No.
After this article was released, were you?
We are back with, what's your name?
Erin Johnson.
Aaron Johnson, who is a forensic major here at Methodist. Can you tell us about your experience with the mock trial here in Fayetteville?
As one of the expert witnesses, I found that probably like the biggest thing was knowing what I was saying and then being able to say it with confidence. Especially since you're in a real courtroom with a real judge, there's a lot of anxiety that goes into that.
Oh, wow, I can imagine. What steps did you take in preparation for the evidence for the trial?
I was part of the team that created the evidence and then looked at the phones. And then I basically, because my role wasn't originally written into it, I helped write my role. So I just wrote it and then memorized it.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little about your role?
So I was part of a security consulting firm that was actually testing the Orange phones, and we proved that it was hackable through our testing.
Oh, wow. And how did that affect the verdict of the trial?
I think it affected the verdict and it gave people the knowledge that, hey, these devices we have in our pockets can be hacked. But I think there was a lot of miscommunication between what a third-party app was and what the internet was.
Okay, yeah. For the mock trial in general, do you think that is a beneficial experience for students?
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially anyone who's going into the criminal justice field, because we will be called as expert witnesses in real courtrooms.
Yeah.
So if the first time you're doing it is your first time as an expert witness in a real case and you mess something up, you know, that's a really big
Right.
detriment to your career versus I now have this experience to be able to take forward.
What word would you give to students for partaking in future trials?
Workload.
Workload?
Yes.
Well, thank you for your time, and I appreciate you answering our questions.
Thank you.
We will now be speaking with
Good afternoon, jury. My name is Nina Piper, and I'm an attorney for the defendant Mead Works and the Corporation of Orange. We are here today to discuss the accusation from Dabney Hamlin of negligence. I'm going to start by a little bit differently than an opening statement normally would. I'm going to go based on the assumption that at least one of you is a parent. Now, parents spend their entire life growing and raising and developing their child, and then they grow up to the age of one day where they are no longer at home. They no longer necessarily need the constant care and support from their parents from a close range. They grow up and they go on and they do their own things. The same thing goes for a business. Mead Works spent his entire life building up this corporation from the ground. He started from very humble beginnings in the garage of his parents' house. He then grew to a multi-million-dollar corporation he has today. He created the Mead Phone, and he has spent his entire life making this at the best that it can be. Now, he takes care of his consumers and makes sure that everything that they have is the best that it can be for them and protects them from any potential harm. Now, once the product passes into a consumer's hands, it is then their responsibility to take care of that. And we are here today to show that we did our part in taking care of our consumers and that it is the plaintiff's responsibility to uphold that as well.
Welcome back to MU Reports. We are here with Dr. Wendy Vonnegut. Can you tell us, please, about your profession here at Methodist University?
I am director of the Legal Studies program here at Methodist University. I'm also the pre-law advisor here at Methodist.
Can you tell us about the mock trial that took place here in Fayetteville?
Yes. About 17 years ago, I teach a class every spring called Law in the Legal System. And one of my students, who's now an attorney, Ron Berry, said, Ms. Vonnegut, I think you need to do a criminal mock trial so that students really learn about the trial system. And that began the journey. And so I started doing just the criminal mock trial, but then I also teach a course called litigation. And the students there said, hey, we want to do a civil mock trial. So this trial was actually a civil mock trial, and I only get to do that every other semester, but every spring we do a criminal mock trial. It's at the Cumberland County Courthouse.
Yeah.
And all the years we've done it, it's been kind of fun because some of these students are now attorneys here in Cumberland County, or they're police officers, or they work for the SBI. So it's a great experience, and I do it to give them hands-on experience so that they learn what the legal system is really like.
Can you tell us about preparation for the mock trial? How do you get things going?
I actually started last year with this mock trial. Ms. Weinbrenner came up to me and said, hey, we'd love to do one with your students with cybercrime. So I started looking for a scenario that would give us the opportunity to do a mock trial. And believe it or not, there are a lot of mock trials that are already created by other universities and schools, and I found one out of Texas, and then we tailored it to our students. So we started this process last spring, and we would meet and go over it, and then we give it to the students like the first week of classes.
Wow. So during the mock trials, you work with the actual county judge. How do you go about planning that? Is it pretty busy on the judge's workload?
Yeah. What ends up happening is we actually started with Judge Kimberly Tucker, and she did it until it got to a point where she was just very busy. And then I asked Judge Ammons if he would do it, and he said sure. And he has been doing it for, God, probably about 12 years now. We coordinate it with his schedule because he is our senior Superior Court judge, and he travels. So we always do it what we call during the administrative week when there are not a lot of trials, there's not going on. And I really have to thank Ellen Hancock because she is an attorney who's the courthouse administrator, and she goes beyond the call of duty to work with us to get the courtroom that we need, and now even the courtroom next to us so that the communication students can videotape it or tape it and record it for us. So I'm already I already now for next semester have the scenario and already pretty much have the trial date so that I can lock it in with the judge to make sure he's available.
How far in the future do you foresee having these mock trials?
Hey, as long as we can do them, because they're a great experience. The students learn so much.
Yes,
And as long as we can continue to get the courthouse and they, allow us to use it, it is just a great experience.
Well, Ms. Wendy, we thank you for having us here at MU Reports.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
And that will be all for the interviewees of MU Reports. Thank you for joining us here, and until next time, have a good day.